Just recently, the Center for Economic and Policy Research recently published a report about the seemingly partisan nature of disaster declaration denials, pointing out that recent denials largely impact states that the president didn't win, such as Maryland, Illinois, and California. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent that this report is entered into the record. Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Associate Minister Stallings, should we consider amending the Stafford Act to include specific, transparent, and non-political criteria for issuing disaster declarations and distributing aid?
I can tell you firsthand, there is no point on SBA's application where we ask if you're a Republican or Democrat. We just want to know, are you a disaster survivor? I think for us, the focus is getting into those communities. If you look, our program is very user-friendly. I mean, we've come in, as you mentioned earlier, we've done $3.6 billion worth of approved lending in California. And to your point, I don't think the president won California, but we're $3.6 billion of lending there.
Disaster relief isn't supposed to reward political loyalty, but you just heard a congressman cite a report alleging disaster declarations are getting denied in states Trump didn't even win. And then ask the obvious question, should the law require transparent, non-political criteria? Instead of answering that head-on, the response shifts to a different comfort line. We don't ask your party on the application, and that right there is the whole game. Watch this.
But we're $3.6 billion of lending there. And so I think the fact that our program focuses on disaster survivors. We walk into a community, we don't care who you voted for, we just want you to know that you've faced the hardest day of your life, and we're empathetic to that. We're reasonable, we're here, we've done everything we can. We've learned some valuable lessons where we could be better, but we're working very hard.
I do appreciate that, and I just recently learned that my governor submitted some supplemental requests. Do I have your word that you're going to take a look at that and make sure that Californians get the funding that they need for the disaster that they're suffering from?
If we get supplemental requests, we just sent a whole team back out to California recently, sir, just to explain our programs yet again and walk folks through. We're very open with our program to assisting those with any needs.
Okay, thank you for that. And the SBA provided members of this committee with helpful updates on disaster loans being made in Los Angeles County in response to the wildfire. What is the status of SBA's disaster loan program there now, nearly a year from the disaster? Can you give me an update?
Absolutely. So we did $3.7 billion in lending. We're right about $785 million in dispersed, with $415 million of that going to homeowners so far. We've got 4,500 dispersals to homes. I would highlight that 1,887 homes are fully dispersed, meaning the homeowner has gotten all the money that they requested, it's in hand. We have gone out and done some windshield surveys. We would hoping to make sure that our program was assisting folks in recovery. We're not seeing as much build back as we would like to see, but we are getting the money out, and still, to the point I made earlier, we had a request that some seniors were struggling with some follow-up. So we just now put a whole team back out doing community events, walking those program, or anyone who's having difficulty with our program. We're going to houses of worship, you name it. We're making sure we're getting in there.
Thank you, Mr. Stallings. Then a big thank you to your team that's out there on the field leading that effort. You know, my district is home to Orange County Women Business Center and a small business development center at Cal State University Fullerton. As you know, SBA resource partners like SBDCs and Women Business Centers are designed to provide counseling and technical assistance to help small businesses across SBA financing. This is especially important after disasters where many people are looking for assistance to help rebuild. How is the SBA currently working with resource partners in areas like Texas, Hill Country, and Southern California to ensure all businesses in the region receive the assistance they need to recover?
So I think that goes back to my earlier statement where we're partnering with our Office of Field, where we're going out into all our regions, districts, sharing the good work that disaster does. I think it's important going into disaster, folks have an understanding of what's available to them. It's very difficult to think of a new idea in the middle of disaster, so we're making a a big push to make sure that blue sky conversations are happening before disaster strikes. We know disaster's coming. It's not going to sneak up on anybody. We know disaster's going to happen. It's just the where. And so the more we can get out among communities and talk to leaders, making sure they know what programs we have available, it's extremely important to us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stalling. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
All right, here's why that exchange matters and why the "we don't ask" party line doesn't actually answer what was asked. Tran isn't accusing some clerk of personally discriminating on an SBA loan form. He's pointing to a bigger concern. If disaster declarations and the flow of federal help can be influenced by politics, then the fix isn't vibes, it's guardrails. That's why he brings up the idea of amending the rules so decisions are tied to specific, transparent, non-political criteria. Because when the rules are vague, the system becomes vulnerable to favoritism, denial by delay, and selective urgency, long before a survivor ever touches an application. Watch the pivot. Stallings goes straight to a statement that sounds ethical and calming. We don't ask if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Okay, but that's like being asked, is the scoreboard rigged? And answering, relax. We don't ask the players what team they like. It sounds reassuring, but it sidesteps the chain of decisions Tran is actually worried about. Declarations, timing, thresholds, outreach, staffing, and how quickly help moves once the spotlight leaves. That's the difference between answering the question and diffusing the moment. Then comes the rhetorical closer design to end the conversation. I don't think the president won California, but we approved billions. Big number, political reference, case closed. Except approved lending isn't the same as relief, and it definitely isn't the same as recovery. These are disaster loans, often necessary, sometimes life-saving, but still debt stapled onto trauma. People aren't buying a new patio set. They're trying to rebuild a home, reopen a shop, keep employees paid, and stay afloat while insurance fights them and paperwork stacks up. So the real test isn't what gets approved on paper. It's what gets dispersed, how fast it hits people's hands, and who gets stuck in the maze. And the hearing accidentally tells the truth when Stallings admits they're not seeing as much rebuilding as they'd like nearly a year later. That's the line to rewind. Because you can approve huge totals and still have communities stalled in real life. Waiting, reapplying, missing calls, losing documents, losing time, losing hope. He mentions seniors struggling with follow-up, and that's not a side note. It's an indictment of the design. Any relief program that requires relentless follow-up, perfect documentation, and unlimited bandwidth isn't relief. It's a second disaster that hits the most vulnerable first. Even the windshield survey's detail gives it away. If you're driving by a year later to see how recovery looks, that means the numbers alone weren't telling the story. Now, I'll give him this. The blue sky conversations point, planning and outreach before the next disaster, matters. But planning can't substitute for accountability. If discretion can be nudged by politics and the public can't see clear standards, then "we don't ask your party" becomes a soothing answer to a totally different question. So here's the real question. Should disaster declarations and aid decisions be locked to transparent, non-political rules that can't be quietly gamed? Or are we going to keep accepting comfort lines while communities wait, rebuild slowly, or fall through the cracks? Because when the cameras are off, the only thing that protects people is the rule book, not the reassurance. And if the rule book is fuzzy, the system doesn't have to say no to fail you. It can just take long enough that you can't recover.